Well, for more on this, let's bring in Ambassador John Bolton. He's a former U.S. ambassador to the UN, a senior fellow now at the American Enterprise Institute, and a Fox News contributor. Ambassador, good of you to join us today and share your perspective with us. You know, obviously, as we've heard from Doug McKelway's report, the families are ecstatic to know their loved ones have been released and will soon be home. Now, the White House, as you know, calls it a diplomatic victory, that relations are improving with Iran on all fronts. Yet outside of the administration, many say the president capitulated to the Iranians by releasing 7 Iranian prisoners. The White House says it was a goodwill gesture. How do you describe the situation as a former ambassador?
Well, it's obviously wonderful for the American hostages and their families, but it's a diplomatic debacle for the United States. Remember, it's not just 7 Iranians who are being released. The other 14 who would have been charged for sanctions violations. One was accused of cyber attacks. The math here is roughly 21 Iranians in exchange for 4, maybe it's 5 Americans. That's not exactly high-powered negotiation. But even worse, and I think this is the key point, the Americans weren't prisoners in Iran. They were hostages. They had been taken by a state terrorist decision and were being held as bargaining chips. All of the Iranian Americans that we're releasing or waiving charges on have been accused of crimes. They've been given full American due process. And to say that victims of terrorism are the equivalent of criminals or alleged criminals gives Iran an enormous victory. And again, while I certainly understand the happiness of the families involved, the question for the U.S. government is always, in this situation, are we simply incentivizing Iran to take further hostages, and are we incentivizing other governments or terrorist groups around the world to do the same? And I'm afraid that's the conclusion they'll draw, that the United States will deal for hostages. Now the price is going to go up.
So what are your concerns, and I think you've already alluded to that, but what are your concerns moving forward, and what are your suspicions of Iran as we move forward?
Well, you know, we've seen Iran take as hostages completely innocent people in the past. Remember the 3 young hitchhikers who, God knows why they were hiking along the Iran-Iraq border to begin with, but were taken and held by Iran. We just finished with the capture of 10 Marines on the 2 riverine boats that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard captured. This is the way a terrorist regime acts. It takes people arbitrarily, it holds them without any legal basis, and then acts like it's gracious and humanitarian when it lets them go.
So Ambassador, how do you stop that then? If you're going to move forward, how do you prevent this type of situation from developing again in the future, since Iran has done it so routinely?
Yeah, well, they've been doing it for 36 years, since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, because successive American governments have not been willing to make it clear to them that we do not accept Americans being taken hostage as an act of terrorism. We won't deal with this regime, and the cost to them is going to be high. I think the administration is so desperate to keep this nuclear deal on track. It's a wonder the Iranians didn't get even more money or more assets or more in exchange for these 4 Americans.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth then, but it sounds like you're saying America has to move forward with more resolve, to be tough and to be strong and actually set the standards in terms of how we want to be dealt with as well, since we're also a player and a part of the world stage as well, just as much as the Iranians are.
Well, well said. What we want to do is deter potential hostage takers from even thinking about doing it in the first place. You don't want to be in a situation where they think they can bargain with a weak administration to get something that benefits them. The more they think they can do it, the more hostages will be taken. So that the cost to the country, the benefit today to get these Americans released, no doubt about it, but the cost may be more Americans taken either by Iran or by others down the road.
Ambassador John Bolton, always good of you to join us and share your perspective. Thank you, sir.